All right, we are live.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. This is the House Energy and Digital Infrastructure Committee on Thursday, January 30th. And we are here today to learn a little bit about Global Foundries. So we typically just go around the room quickly and introduce ourselves. Then we have folks who are in the room introduce themselves and let us know who they're here representing today. And then we'll turn it over to you to identify yourself for the record. So I'm Representative Kathleen James from the Bennington Ford District.
I am Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury, Calgary, Essex.
Richard Bailey, Memorial 2.
Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington.
Michael Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Kara Torrey, Washington 2.
Graham Klepner, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
Great, Jeff.
Jack Locker, Committee Assistant, Williston, Vermont.
Morning, Matt McMahon with MMR here with Jeff.
Great.
I'm Erin. I'm here with Governor Douglas.
Oh, super.
College student, yeah.
Oh, welcome. Great. All right, for the record.
Very good. I'm Jeffrey Cram. I'm Senior Manager at Global Foundries, and I represent GF Power, Senior Manager within the Facilities Engineering team. And I manage, in addition to the GF Power, I manage our electrical and our waste treatment and our central utility plants. I want to thank you for the invitation today to allow me to share a little bit of our story about Global Foundries and GF Power. I think Jack's going to run the slideshow for us here. And I wanted to start by introducing Global Foundries, because that really sets the stage for why GF Power exists. And so, slide one, Jack. So Global Foundries is a semiconductor manufacturer. As the name implies, we've got a global footprint. We manufacture in Essex Junction. We have a manufacturing facility in Malta, New York, and then facilities in Singapore and Dresden, Germany as well. On the next slide, I'll show a little bit more specific to our facility here in Essex Junction. What you're looking at on the picture is just an overview of the Essex side of our site, situated in Essex Junction, right on the Winooski River. It says Fab 9 is all of our manufacturing fabs are numbered. So we go by Essex, Burlington, Fab 9. Fab 9 is the name for a site within Global Foundries. Various market segments that we manufacture chips for. I'll hit that more on the next slide on the specifics of those. We're a trusted foundry, which means we can make chips for the United States government. And as a stat from a few years ago, we were over 40% of the state's exports were the chips we were manufacturing. We are the second largest foundry's 200 millimeter factory, and 200 millimeters is the size of the wafers that we make the chips on. So we're in older sites, we make the smaller wafers. We also have 300 millimeter facilities as well. You make more chips on those and you can make them at a different scale. We employ about 1,800 employees here in Vermont, and we're the largest for-profit employer in the state. And it's got a long history. We're going on year 69 right now. It was originally an IBM site, opened in 1957. GF acquired the site from IBM in 2015, and here we are today. And the last is we have property on both Essex and Williston, and we have our own bridge that goes across the Winooski River. So we have office and admin buildings on the Winooski side of our campus. On the next slide, we'll go into a little bit of the products that we manufacture. If you've seen anything about Global Foundries in Vermont in the news recently, a lot of it's been around GaN, and that's a gallium nitride, and that's a new technology that we're investing in. And that is really targeted at the automotive industry, and it's a new technology. It's kind of the future part of the future for our fab, and they're highly utilized in EVs. So as we're moving towards that electrification, part of the chips that we make at our site will go support that. In all kinds of home applications, whether it's a streaming stick or earbuds or all kinds of other devices, we have a lot of chips throughout those. My favorite is the smartphone. If you have a smartphone, I assume we all have one, some of us may have two. They have many chips in them, most all of you will have a phone that's manufactured with at least one chip made here in Vermont, which is kind of a neat thing as you think about the high technology of these phones. Plenty of chips in the communications and infrastructure, wireless transactions, and then for us, the aerospace defense, as I mentioned, we're a trusted foundry, so we make a lot of chips for that particular segment, and it's an important designation for us to remain a manufacturer for the United States government. And so that's kind of a real high level on Global Foundries, and now we'll move into GF Power, a little background. Ellen gave a little bit of background in her discussion earlier today. But in October of 2022, the Public Utility Commission approved GF Power as a utility. We have a single customer. It's only Global Foundries. It's really helpful with my customer satisfaction surveys is I know where it came from. So we started operating in February of 2023, and the way we're set up right now is we're a direct customer of Elco, the direct customer of ISO New England, and we have a 4-year transitional PPA with Green Mountain Power. So as we envision this movement from a retail customer of Green Mountain Power to our own utility, we have a transitional period in there where GMP provides us energy, res compliance, and some other services as well. That will end in September of 2026, and we'll be fully making all of our own decisions on energy portfolio, where we source our renewables from, and in any of those as well. So one of the questions that typically comes up is why was GF Power important to Global Foundries, and why does it matter? So we're Vermont's single largest consumer of electricity. Semiconductor manufacturing is incredibly energy intensive. So we use, I'm going to throw a big number out there, about 340,000 megawatt hours of electricity every year. That's really, give or take the year, it's about what the entire city of Burlington uses. So when we look at what it costs to operate our facility, frequently that cost is around 50% of the cost to operate it. That's 50% of the cost of how you heat it, the maintenance that you do on the facility, the people you hire to do the work on just maintaining the buildings and the critical systems that we utilize. And so it was important for us to do this as such a large part of our manufacturing costs was to help us maintain competitiveness within our industry, against our competitors, but also within our own company. And we make decisions on where to invest our dollars within Global Foundries, and we want Essex Junction to be favorable from a competitiveness standpoint, so that we continue to make those investments in Vermont, so that we continue to fund the next levels of technology and keep that going. And so it allows us to maintain that position as a large Vermont employer. We can go to the next slide here. Ellen touched on res and the change in res and what it meant for each of the utilities. I'll just kind of drill down through Global Foundries and what each of the different tiers means to us. And so the first part that we're looking at with this is we have some unique opportunities within the renewable energy standard because of the nature of the amount of property we own, because of the uniqueness of the business that we're in. So I'll show some slides further on, but we're looking to put solar on our campus, utilize in our manufacturing process. We have a very significant transmission and distribution infrastructure on site. We're I believe we're the only business in the state served at the 115 kV level, and we own all the equipment downstream from that. So from 115 kV, we do all the step down to your wall outlet with our internal team. And so with the commitments that we have in the different tiers, we're committed to 100% renewable under Tier 1 by 2035. Tier 2, we're committed to 20% by 2035. And we're going to do this with a combination of on-site renewables. As we've looked at the size of our campus, we understand we have the opportunity to utilize some of the spare space that we have. We have almost 700 acres, and I'll hit the 2 phases that we currently have in development, but it's in 16 to 17 megawatt range that we have in development right now. And it will allow us to meet a significant portion of our tier 2 requirement right on our own campus without having to go out into other areas. Tier 3 is an energy transformation. It's a fossil fuel transformation. We have a unique opportunity in this one. We've got with the last change in the res, we enabled the potential to reduce manufacturing emissions as an alternative to fossil fuel conversion. When we look at how do you get the biggest bang for the buck, how do you get the most emissions reductions, manufacturing emissions is an area that may be easier for us to do, and at the same time deliver more actual emissions reductions than just fossil fuel. We did just put in our first EV chargers earlier this month, so that's a piece to that. But we're looking at the tier 3 as opportunity to participate on multiple levels on that. And then the last is the new regional renewables, which is 10% for us by 2035. Questions on that one before I move on? Or? Okay.
I guess just a really high level to understand it, a very basic level.
Mm-hmm.
So the ability for global foundries to kind of split off, you know, and form your own utility is going to allow you, instead of negotiating to buy your power from Green Mountain Power, you can now negotiate those rates yourselves. You're going to be able to buy your own power from ISO New England, negotiate those rates in a more, I presume, a more cost-effective or affordable.
Right. Well, we're going to look at how to assemble our entire portfolio.
Gotcha.
But there's many suppliers out there that are generators. We can go direct to a generator to negotiate with. There are other companies that will integrate entire portfolio needs, and so we're actually going through a process right now that will probably run through third quarter, where we're working to identify what's the mix we want to do, what's the combination of long-term contracts, where do we want to just let the market and take what the market has. So we're looking at what's the optimal combination for that portfolio for us. And so for us, there's a level of risk that they're willing to accept in this that may not be a level of risk that we want our residents to accept.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. So your total consumption, you said
340,000 megawatts last year.
So
Megawatt hours.
do you see that stabilizing or do you see that increasing?
So I've got a great slide in the future, but I'll say in general, what I see is we work hard at resource reduction, right? Renewable or not, if you don't use it, you don't need to generate it. So we work hard at reduction. We've got a long history of that. So we would say, in general, everything being equal, we would continue to use less. However, there's an electrification piece that we're looking forward to from a heating at some point in the future that would probably drive some. And then we look at our business as well, and with some new technologies in our business, if we make different investments, you could see a step function change in some of that.
Okay.
Go Campbell?
Yeah, I guess I was wondering about how you electrify manufacturing, but really more generally, I'm wondering about your projections for cost difference. So versus buying from GMP,
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that? And what do you think? What are you expecting for an impact there?
Yeah, so I think I don't have a specific number because as you diverge, it's a bunch of, well, it could have been this and it could have been that versus what our specific bottom line is. But I look at it as we need to have something material in that, and on the size of where we are. I look at material starting to be at 5 and 10%. So as long as we're still material in at least that range, then I think that
and it could grow from there.
it could grow.
Yeah.
And we're doing things that are very targeted for us. So we're addressing specific sectors of our energy bill differently than you would if you were a retail customer.
And I don't think you mentioned your usage in kilowatt or megawatt hours, but not your dollar cost. Do you have a sense of that? to your chair,
Yeah, we're in the $30 to $35 million a year range.
for electricity.
Right.
Be nice to save 10% of that.
Indeed, indeed.
Great, thanks.
So I'll move on to resource management, and so, I've talked about what we're doing from RES, and it's part of the statute. But we also have across our company, we have voluntary goals that we're committed to as well. I mentioned anything that you don't use, you can save for your business. So it's one of the core components of what we're doing is that we're always looking to find out how to use our resources more effectively, more efficiently. If we install a new tool, does it operate at a lower energy value than the tool it replaces? And the same thing with the water consumption. So we have these goals across our portfolio, and they go to a 2050 carbon neutral standpoint and net zero for us. And so this is across each of our fabs that we're doing this. Next slide, I just want to show some usage stats for you.
Yeah,
Yep.
Sorry, I just want to point out how impressive the reductions over the 3 years between 2020 and 23 are. High double digits in 3 or 4 years on energy, water, and waste. Congratulations.
And it's always that the benefit of having the 4 manufacturing sites is there's a lot of what did you guys do? What did your team do? And go apply those across, because everyone's got different experiences and different learning that they've had. So there's a big effort on our team to understand what was successful elsewhere. On the next slide, I've got 4 charts here on our energy profile, and the one that on the top left, that's a consumption chart. It's in gigawatt hours, and it starts back in 2000. And in 2000, we're over 500 gigawatt hours a year. We've reduced that to under 350 gigawatt hours in the previous year. So there's a long history that we have of managing our consumption and continuing to manage it lower and lower and lower. So that was my comment on we would expect it to continue to go lower unless we have step function changes in the nature of our business. The bottom left is a daily consumption, and it's by month. And so you can see that we peak in the summer hours, and the reason we peak in the summer hours is the primary driver of the electricity load beyond manufacturing is cooling of our manufacturing environment. So we run a lot of chillers and extra air handlers to help with temp and humidity for our manufacturing environment. The top right is just it's our peak usage every day of the year for a full year. This is 2023. And again, you can see our peak usage again comes in the summer months, and peak usage is always important for us as we're looking at how to manage the peaks in the state and the different investments the state's got to make in its infrastructure. It's important for us to understand where our peaks are as well. And that's where the next slide is. This is July of last year, and this is usage by hour. So we start at midnight, we work right back through till midnight. The orange is the range of values that we had, the range of usage that we had during that time, and the green is the average. And what you can see is our usage ramps up as the day gets warmer. So noon, 1, 2 o'clock, we start to hit our peak, and then as we get in the evening hours, that we start to use less. So that actually is pretty complementary with what the state needs to do from a load management as the peaks seem to be in the evening hours here in our state, as we're already on that tail end down.
So in the last 10 years, how have you seen that usage change during your months? So are you seeing an increase in more usage because it's warmer, or are you seeing it staying relatively the same?
I actually see more change on our natural gas usage in the wintertime. That has more variability than what I see on electricity. But certainly, we're very flat on electricity, except for summertime. And I've not seen a huge change in summertime peaks, but I do see it in natural gas. Okay. On the next slide, I just want to share with you some of the 2 solar phases that we have in process right now. So I mentioned we have 700 acres, almost 700 acres on our campus. And we've got 3 projects right now that are far along in the development stage and that have all been submitted to the Public Utility Commission. 2 of them got approval here in January. So there's a yellow block up near the top, and that's an old parking lot. We haven't used the parking lot in probably 2 decades. And so we're going to repurpose the parking lot and put solar on it. We've got another yellow block to the right side that's called Chip Alley, and that's an old field. It used to be Hedi a long time ago, and we're going to be able to put about 2.5 megawatts on that. And then down to the bottom is another corner of property that used to be Hedi as well. So we're trying to repurpose some of these now and serve ourselves on these. They're only going to produce about 3% of our annual usage, but when they're going in our peak hours, it's up to 20% of what we're using at that time. So it's really takes some of the pressure off of the grid at that point. The next phase,
I'm going back to the previous slide.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down that you said earlier you used 340 megawatt hours.
Mm-hmm.
Did you mean gigawatt hours a year?
340,000 megawatt hours, but 340 gigawatts, yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Because the chart says gigawatt hours.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Good. On our phase 2 projects, we've got 3 more projects. Again, we're going to repurpose a parking lot that's very, very lightly used. And then we have 2 projects down to the left. We had a solar development farm that was on our property. It was with Sandia Labs, and it was funded quite a while ago. So we're going to fill that area up, plus add another area as well. And then we have another area to the top right there. Collectively, there are about 8 megawatts that we're going to have. And so by the time we're done, we're going to be in the 15 to 17 megawatt range for these projects. Then we'll take a look at rooftops. Are canopies viable? We'll keep going down that route. Here we go. Each of these projects are going to be owned by our developers. So we're working with a partner. They'll own it and they'll sell us all of the electricity that comes out of it. And part of us managing our long-term costs is we've signed a 25-year power purchase agreement with them. So we'll have a flat rate for the 25 years of the project and help us manage our costs. So that's one of the pieces of the portfolio that we start to put together. The next slide is a project where we're adding a 15 megawatt battery to our site. We have a partnership with Lightshift Energy. Currently, the CPG application is in front of the Public Utility Commission. And we connect this right into one of our switch yards, and we use it for a combination of things. One is renewable storage, another is load management during peak hours to help us take some pressure off of the grid and save ourselves at the same time. And then there's always the potential is, buying electricity when it's cheap on the market and using it when it's more expensive. And those are all opportunities for us to utilize that. And assuming the application goes through, we'll have that operation sometime next year, early 27. The last slide I have is really a look ahead as far as what GF Power is doing going forward. So I mentioned right now we're in the midst of assembling our portfolio for that fourth quarter of 2026. It's an activity we'll probably be doing, largely have completed third quarter of this year, where we really look to understand how to put the different components together. We continue to leverage the uniqueness of being a manufacturer and a utility, development of solar, batteries, and then other ideas that we can have, whether it's partnering with other utilities within the state or other programs to help us do our beyond compliance. And we look at the beyond compliance as what must we do, and then there's the level that GF is doing from an additional. This is what makes sense for business. This is what's good to do. Energy conservation. You asked a question on the break about what we do. We have a self-managed energy efficiency program. That's where it's a program where we spend, over a 3-year period, we spend at least $3 million on energy efficiency projects in both electricity and fuel. That program is really core to how we make decisions in our business anyway. Every time that we, we're looking to purchase a new piece of equipment, we're making sure it's the most efficient piece. We're looking at our processes and making sure the processes use as little electricity or as little fuel or as little chemical as it can. And so that's really ingrained.
Just, I think you said this on an earlier slide, but when you install EV chargers, that helps you meet your tier 3?
Correct.
Yeah.
We'll use a piece of that. And that was good. We installed them and we installed 5 dual ports, so 10 ports on those. And within a week, we had 7 and 8 cars sitting on a routine basis on those. So it was, made me think we have an opportunity to do more in the near future.
Great. Did you have your hand up or were you just? No. Okay. Oh, sorry. I thought I saw a thoughtful finger wave. Go ahead.
Very good. So, the energy efficiency is just ingrained in what we're doing, and we continue on that path. And then, thank you for the question on the EV chargers and looking to, for us with our employees, what we find is a lot of them don't have access necessarily to charging at their house, whatever if it's an apartment or a condo, they don't have that access. So right now, the employees are using them already have EVs and they're just coming to use it at work. We expect in the near future to start seeing employees make changes in their vehicle purchasing decisions because they now have access to this. And we find that a lot is someone's going to go look at a car and they go, when are the chargers coming? I need, I don't have a place to go, but I could do it here. So, and that's kind of the intro on GF Power.
This isn't a GF-specific question, but you might have this information. What's the difference between the cheapest power of the day compared to the peak power?
Yeah, so there's a great app, and it's an ISO New England app, and I look at it frequently.
I have that.
I've seen days where it's in the pennies per, and $10 a megawatt hour. I've seen days where it's $400 a megawatt hour at that specific time. So there's a big range, and so
So you would be buying at those rates directly from ISO?
We would not buy our entire portfolio. That we may leave a piece of it that we buy and buy at market rates. We will not do the entire. We're willing to accept some risk, probably not that much risk.
Yeah.
So we'll work into some long-term agreements and some agreements on an overall cost of delivery as we go. Yeah.
Yes.
So when that $400 a megawatt hour rate you shed load, or you decide not to manufacture,
no, we shut off everything already that we can, and to halt manufacturing for an hour or two, the return wouldn't be there. So it would be, you would have to endure it. So that's where we want to make sure we have the appropriate protection in our portfolio, so that there's not too many hours that we would be paying that higher charge.
So do you have a controller that then sells back the excess into that $400 an hour rate you market your excess power?
Yeah, so we're likely going to partner with somebody to do that with us. So right now, GMP performs all of those functions. As we move forward, we will likely partner with someone to manage the day-to-day pluses and minuses in the portfolio. We have a really good understanding of what we're going to use on an hour-by-hour basis based on a forecast, but it's never exactly right. So there's always some of that adjustment, but we'll likely partner with somebody to do that for us.
How big did you say the battery storage facility you're building is? 15
megawatts.
15 megawatts?
Yeah.
And how much of your operation could that power for how long?
So our base load is in the 35 to 40 megawatts, somewhere in there. So it could power a portion of it for about 3 hours. So probably a third to 40%, 30 to 40% for about 3 hours.
I imagine you have very sophisticated integrated controls and things like that. So with the battery, you would be able to go to the highest cost hours and kind of use some of the battery to just bring it down a little bit.
Yeah, that would be the idea, is to understand the algorithm, to
Yeah.
use a little here and a little there, and try to manage that.
Is that something like a technology that you could develop in-house? Because I know it's something we need on the residential side.
Yeah. So under the development that we're doing this as a partnership with another company, and they're going to provide that service. It's that part isn't what isn't core to manufacturing. So I suppose you could develop it, but it's not our core.
Yeah.
So we're going to let them do it.
Is that light ship?
Yes.
I was just wondering if you use efficiency Vermont services at all, or it's just your needs so far that's just.
Yeah, we've kind of that SMEET program, the self-managed program, is separate from Efficiency Vermont. So this is wholly on our own.
So you look at their lighting incentives or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We do our own lighting programs, but not through not with additional incentives.
Okay.
The EV chargers now, is that just for your employees and do they pay for that? Is there a charge to the person using it?
So it's for anybody that can get on to our site. Now our site is a restricted site, but it's for our employees, contractors, guests, so anybody that's on our site, has access to our site, can use it. We do charge them for it, but we charge them at essentially our cost of electricity. We're looking at this as a opportunity to provide a benefit to our employees, to incentivize them to make that move. So, we're not recovering the cost of the chargers themselves. We're not any maintenance on them. We're really just, the cost of electricity is what we're recovering. So we're doing that reasonably at cost.
What other opportunities? We have time here, so might as well ask yours. What other opportunities you see in the manufacturing process, or I don't know, I'm thinking about forklifts or I don't know, stuff like that that you could electrify.
So
reduce to satisfy tier 3 requirements.
Yeah. The area we're looking at within the tier 3 that has the clearest path for us is not necessarily electrification. It's a emissions reduction from our manufacturing process. And
yeah, you talked about that a little
bit. Yeah, and that's our clearest path. From a fossil fuel conversion. When we start to do that, it will probably be a move to kind of outlier buildings. One building at a time that are not core to our central plant. I'm looking back to see if I've got a picture behind me still. But most of our heating and cooling for the site comes from one building, and we have extensive distribution from that building. So to start carving off a component of that is challenging. We'll have to address that at some point. But our near term is, can we do heating differently in some of the smaller buildings that we have around the site?
Okay. So building heating is sort of the principal pathway that you're seeing.
That would be one of them. Consolidation is always one of those as well. As our site's an older site, can we move our employees? Can we move our functions to more of a central location and take some of the buildings that we are heating with 100 employees and do less heating? And that's something we look at as well. And that's not a transformation. That's just use less.
Right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Would you guys consider gas generation with natural gas to make electricity?
I think a couple challenges with that. One is I think as we're moving into 100% renewables, it's challenging to put that on the table. We have looked years ago at potential to do a cogen plant with, provides the electricity and you use the waste heat in your process. Unfortunately, our manufacturing process generates heat itself. So most of the year we're taking heat away. So we wouldn't be able to fully utilize cogeneration plant. So that there's a better path for us to obtain electricity than manufacture ourselves, generate ourselves.
We were just hearing from Vermont Gas about their thermal energy network projects. I'm just wondering if that's something with a lot of waste heat, if you've explored that at all.
Not with Vermont Gas on those. We do some things. One of the things we do that I mentioned, our process generates waste heat. In the wintertime, we have something called free cooling. And we shut off one of our chillers and we run the water loop outside. And we take advantage of the Vermont climate to help us reduce some of our electrical load during that time period. So we do look to take different parts and reuse or look at different ways to kind of save energy across the plant.
Just one other question, if we.
Yep, and then we'll.
And that is about gas. So you buy natural gas from Vermont Gas.
Yeah.
And I guess it must be you use a lot of it. I suppose you get a good price.
We do. So we're an interruptible customer, which means we can go and lock our rates. We go out and with Vermont Gas assistance, we can go get a price point in advance. We know roughly what we're going to use, with climate variations aside. And interruptible customer means they can call us up and say, you got to shut off one of your generators. We use number 2 fuel as a backup source. We prefer not to use it, but as a alternative to being a fixed rate, it works. And what it does is it helps us out and it helps Vermont Gas, because when those days that are really cold and the pipeline is only so big, it helps them maintain pressure in their pipeline as well by us shutting off a generator or two and moving to a backup.
So you use it just for heating, right?
Just for heating. And a little bit in our smaller amounts in our process, but ultimately, yes.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate you being here. Very interesting testimony.
Great, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, glad you reached out. And I guess